Hi there, I'm Lloyd.
And I'm John, and we're from Pina Comics. As we dive into your favorite pop culture topics, we may just
Occasionally,
use language that could be considered...
globaloney?
What? No, I mean...
Oh, foul?
Exactly. Offensive?
No doubt. Crass?
You bet your ass!
Sophisticated?
What? No. Anyways, you get it by now. It's mostly just...
gutter talk!
And one more thing. Watch out for spoilers. Sometimes we drop them like trousers. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Is it your time of the month?
I don't get my period, dipshit. I don't have a uterus.
Or ovaries.
All right, I'm John. Welcome back to another episode of Pint O Comics. The Manster is off this evening. He has some personal stuff to take care of. With me tonight is my good old buddy from SWO Productions. We got Stu in the house. Stu, what's going on, man?
Oh, I am well. We just recorded an episode for my show, then we're hopping over. We're doing an episode for your show. My mouth is very dry. I hope my ice water doesn't make a lot of noise as I drink it.
You know what, Stu? It's fine if it does. It's fine. It's fine if it does. Enjoy your ice water. We all need ice water in our lives.
Do you know,
So-
has Lloyd seen the movie that we're going to talk about today?
Yes, I saw it with him.
Oh,
I saw it
okay.
with him. Yeah. So this episode, it's going to be a little bit shorter than most episodes. By a little shorter, I mean not 2 hours. We're going to be doing a review of Black Widow. Spoiler. We're going to be talking spoilers. So if you have not seen Black Widow yet, you could shut this off now. Thanks for the download. Go check it out. If you want to check it out, come back and then listen. Lloyd and I went and saw it with the crew from Boom Tube Comics up in Southington, Connecticut. Yeah. Dan took us out. We went out and had a great time about a week ago. Lloyd just has a bunch of stuff going on right now. And in all honesty, this is episode 198. The last couple weeks, I've tried to get a couple of these shorter episodes in there because editing a full-length pint and a full-length On the QT, which if you're not listening to On the QT, that's over on Forgotten Entertainment. That's where me and Lloyd are talking about the films of Quentin Tarantino. As a matter of fact, this week, Stu is on where we talked about Django Unchained.
Yes.
Django!
You seriously underscored. I
Well,
had
that's
forgotten how much you underscored that movie until I listened to the episode now that it's out.
And you guys,
Lloyd and I were on it. Lloyd and I know how good that movie is.
yeah, I messaged Scary Larry and I said, look, this is what these guys gave it. This is what I gave it. What do you say? And he's like, you're dead on. I'm like, thank you, Larry. At least Larry gets it.
Larry doesn't like the best Jason movie. I don't trust anything.
You don't trust anything he says?
I don't trust anything from him. And I already know he gave me enough of a hint to say when we start doing Nightmare on Elm Street, he doesn't like Dream Warriors.
Well, yeah, because I guess that would be kind of considered like the posery one, because I think everybody loves Dream Warriors, which I love it too.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one everybody glommed onto.
Yeah.
We'll get to it when we start doing those shows, but everybody forgets how terrifying the first one is compared to how goofy they eventually got, only to kind of get scary again at the very end. We'll get to that. So we're going to talk Black Widow. And yes, Lloyd did see it, but he just couldn't get here tonight to do this. And I needed a short episode to edit this week. I'm in the middle of editing the Hateful Eight QT episode, and I don't have a whole lot of time. So I said, you know what? We don't do a lot of brand new movies. Let's do Black Widow. It kind of deserves it, I guess you could say, because it is, the first really big film to hit theaters again since the pandemic. I don't want to say ended because it's not over, but since it kind of lowered to the point where we could do things again. And obviously people were just crazy waiting for this movie. It was supposed to come out last summer, and then it was going to come out on Disney Plus at the end of last year, I think. And then they said no, we're going to wait till the summertime, and then it's summertime. First thing I'll ask now, I saw it in the theaters. Did you see this in the theaters, or did you do the $30 Disney Plus special?
I will never do the $30 Disney Plus special. That is an absurd price. I mean, there are only 2 people in my household. If you have like 4 kids and they all want to watch the same movie, that's probably a savings for you, but it's just me and my wife. $30 is so much more than we're going to pay to go to the movies and see a matinee. So nope, we've seen it in the movies, and for lack of a better term, COVID hasn't ended, but since things have somewhat gone back to normal, I've seen 3 movies in theaters this year. So the Black Widow was one of the 3 that I've seen since things have been a little better.
I would not do the Disney Plus thing for $30 either. And in all reality, I did not plan on going to see this in the theaters. I have not seen all the MCU movies in theaters. I've skipped a few of them. And this was one that I felt would be perfectly fine to skip. But I got invited, and it was a great night out. Thank you again to Dan and the folks over at BoomTube. We had an awesome time. So it was good to get out there. So Black Widow comes out, and let's go over the cast real quick before we just start digging right into this movie, just to refresh some people's memories and or get a feeling for who was in this thing. Of course, we got the lovely Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. Now, this movie is situated squarely between Civil War and Avengers Infinity War.
Seems to be, yeah.
One of the reasons you know that is because she's not fucking dead. So she dies in Endgame, and she's very alive in this. It starts off with her being on the run, the Sokovia Accords, for her violating them, and it ends essentially with her taking off in a Quinjet, which we know she's going to, and she says she's going to bail her friends out of jail. So that's where this movie is centered right there. Florence Pugh from Stu's favorite movie of 2019. Midsommar, actually one of my favorite movies, but Stu absolutely hates it. Florence Pugh plays Yelena Belova, who is another Black Widow. There's multiple Black Widows. They get into the Red Room, which is from the comics, and this is the Black Widow training ground, and Natasha was not the only Black Widow. There are multiples. Yelena is actually Black Widow in the comics as well at different points.
She was in the Dark Avengers as their Black Widow.
Yep, and I think she initially came out when Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada did the Marvel Knights stuff in the late 90s. I think that was the first. I think that was the first appearance that she was in, and in this she plays essentially Elena and Natasha, because no characters in movies can ever not be related or know each other prior. They play like kind of foster sisters, foster I guess is a good word. Rachel Weisz is Melina, and she is their foster mother, their undercover mother. Stu, do you agree? Rachel Weisz still got it, man.
She genuinely looks about 5 years older than she did in The Mummy. It's pretty amazing what being in Hollywood and having access to all those trainers and all that money can do for you. But yeah, she looks like she's aged about 5 years in the last 22 years.
She is wonderful, and she's always good in everything. And they jam her in, and by jam her in, I don't mean like she fits in it fine. They get her in a Black Widow costume at the end of this movie, and I salute you, Marvel. I salute you for that. David Harbour, who everybody knows as the lovable Sheriff Hopper from Stranger Things and Hellboy. He was Hellboy in a movie that nobody liked. He plays Alexei, who is the Red Guardian. He is the USSR's super soldier, and he is also part of this undercover foster family. So essentially, just to jump in, the beginning of the movie starts off with the 4 of them living in Ohio. Now, I don't know about you, but my initial thought was that this was not really Ohio. It was like in Russia, and they were training to infiltrate. But no, they're actually in Ohio, and they're having this nice family night. Now, I got to say this: I listened to So Wizard podcast, and they reviewed this last week, and it blew my mind because it immediately clicked for me. So I don't know if you noticed this, Stu, or not. The 2 little girls are, I think, probably like 13 and 6, who are playing the younger version of Natasha and Yelena. The little girl who plays younger Natasha is the daughter in real life, Milla Jovovich. Think about what she looked like. For me,
she does look,
holy shit. As soon as Joey or Marcellus said that, I went, holy fuck. And then I looked her up online. She is like a 13-year-old version of her mother. Nice. She looks exactly like her.
I didn't know that, but now that you say that, and I do think I heard that online, but I thought it was somebody saying it sarcastically because look how much she looks like Milla Jovovich. But if she's actually her daughter, there's a striking resemblance there. Yeah.
Her name is Ever Anderson, and she is the daughter of Milla Jovovich and Jovovich. I have a hard time with that fucking name. And Paul Anderson, who made all those terrible Resident Evil movies.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot that's who she married. Yep.
Yeah. They are hiding out in America trying to. They don't really ever really fully say it, but I guess they're trying to steal Shield secrets, and they get caught out, so they have to leave in a quick hurry. Right? They have to leave in a quick hurry, and that's what sets the movie up. When they get back to Russia, we don't find out what happens to the parents right away, but the two little girls are immediately brought to the Red Room to be trained to become Black Widows.
Mhm.
And they do that thing where they take a popular song and do a slow version of it.
I know. Oh, that was weird, but my wife loved it. That weird cover of "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it.
No, I thought it felt really forced, but my wife was here for it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one, but the opening credit scene was good. Like I said, setting everything up. They have to rush out of America and get back to Russia. Ray Winstone, who boy, he's been in a bunch of things. He was the CGI Beowulf in that Beowulf movie. He was also Indiana Jones's friend in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, who keeps on turning on him. He plays the villain basically of the piece. He's Dreykov,
and he doesn't really want to do a Russian accent, and he's not going to do a Russian accent.
Yeah, it seems like he does one a few times, and then he's just like, "Nah, not anymore, not anymore."
I'm bored with this.
I'm gonna destroy this guy's name. And I read he's a character in the comics. I don't recognize him by name from the comics, but O.T. Fagbenley, Fagbenle, so Fagbenley. He plays Mason. He is Natasha's contact that kind of procures stuff for her.
He feels like a character who would be in the comics, but my not being a big Black Widow person, I didn't know him.
The only Black Widow run I've ever read was for this podcast with my wife last year. We did the Mark Waid, Chris Samney run. And if he was in it, I don't remember that. William Hurt returns as Thunderbolt Ross, absolutely sleepwalking through every scene he's in. He just literally seems like he forgot that he is on contract to Marvel and he's irritated that they called him. And here's this, we're going to go with an early spoiler, but it's part of the cast. Taskmaster is in this and played by Olga Krylenko, who plays Antonia, who is the daughter of Dreykov. And I knew I recognized her even though she's wearing heavily face scarred makeup. She was the female lead in Quantum of Solace, the Bond movie.
Oh, okay.
I knew her from somewhere and I couldn't put it together, but she was in Quantum of Solace. So, Stu, essentially, we find out about her childhood. She has a sister that she doesn't know anymore. It's after Civil War. She's just trying to hide out, and she immediately gets caught by Taskmaster, and that starts the whole action out. On the other end,
there's some red gas.
There's a red gas that Elena, who is a current Black Widow assassin, gets a face full of. It immediately takes the effects of any mind control that the Black Widows are having used on them through the Red Room off. So the whole plot MacGuffin of this movie is we've got to get to the Red Room, and we've got to distribute this gas to free all the Black Widows. That's it. That's the plot right there. All right, Stu. So before we dig into the movie too much, was this the MCU film that, maybe you, after a year and a half of no MCU, Endgame ended, and then what we had, the Spider-Man sequel, and that's been it, and it's been a long time. Was this the movie that you were, chomping at the bit for?
No, but it was never going to be, because the big complaint about this movie was we're finally getting this movie that we should have gotten 5 or 6 years ago at least for this character, and now we've already known she's going to die. We know exactly what her fate is. We know what the status of her life is leading up to her fate. So the stakes in this movie were always going to be inherently low. Some people have said that's not a very good complaint because the movie can still do things, but it is how I felt about this movie going in. And I don't know, it's a perfectly good movie, but after that wait, after not having anything since Far From Home, and I know you didn't care for Far From Home, but boy, the ending to Far From Home, the mid-credit scene in that, boy, from that scene, all I have wanted is Spider-Man 3. And then we get this, and it's just this was okay. This feels like a phase 2 movie. I think I said that. It feels like the quality level was phase 2. It doesn't feel like something that should have been wait 2 years and then you can have this.
Right. This, especially after, whether you enjoyed all of them or some of them, getting the 3 MCU TV shows kind of in a row. This feels like it would have been probably a better MCU TV show, because this really is, and nothing against this movie, because like you said, in the end, we're going to grade it. I still felt like this was an enjoyable film, but it just, like, stakes aren't high in this movie. It just doesn't feel like there's a whole lot hanging here for the rest of the MCU, which is fine. It doesn't have to every one of these films doesn't have to, lead into the next one, or at least, connect to the other ones. I'm fine with that. This could have been like a Bourne level spy movie. You know what I mean? Like, really amped it up and really shown, what she could do. And I feel like one of the biggest problems right off the bat in this movie is that Scarlett Johansson is completely outshined in this movie by Florence Pugh. I personally, I like Johansson. Look, we're not going to lie. We're men. She's gorgeous. She's good. She's funny. She adds, a level to the character. We've liked her for 10 years plus as the character. But then you get Elena, and I'm thinking to myself the whole time, I would rather watch a whole movie about her than about Natasha at this point. Did you feel that way at all?
I don't know that I would rather have seen that movie. It's just, it comes down to the same thing a lot. And I hate whenever I keep having the same thought on a movie, but like, this movie should have come out 6 or 7 years ago. Like, we've already seen so much of her character, and her character did deserve her own movie. But whether that was Perlmutter's fault or whoever's, didn't want to give her own movie previously, at this point, it's just like, all right, we've seen a lot of her. What more can we really do with her? Yeah, she deserves her own movie, but at this point, she's been in so many of the others and she's had decent roles that it's just, I don't know that she necessarily did a bad job, but yeah, I felt other people in the movie were more of a highlight than her. I personally think this movie lived and died for me with David Harbour. I thought he was fantastic.
He was great in it. I thought he was a little too jokey. Like,
he's that MCU character, though. I mean, the MCU is very tropesy, and the MCU does what it does. And boy, I legitimately am excited for Shang-Chi because, the jokey character is going to get to be Awkwafina, and I'm very excited for that. But that's the character they have. It's the Michael Pena, the Awkwafina. That's who these characters are always going to be in that movie. And I thought for that role, he just did so good. I had so much enjoyment every time he was on screen.
He was great. I'm not taking that away from him. He was great. I just felt like I wish they had kind of given him a little bit more of even like maybe a single moment of of seriousness or heroism. Like there's the one bit where you're like, oh, he's standing up to these guys and they blast him full of darts, and he goes down like the scene where they're locked up and he's admitting his feelings, and then the door just opens because and again, hey, if you're trying to go with the female empowerment angle, like he's not the brains of the group, they are, and they're also the bronze of the group. I don't mind that. I liked the Elena character a lot because she had a lot of good little quippy lines, but she also showed that she was pretty deadly. I love the whole bit, and I get it. I know they were doing it, to make you love it. But the whole, what is with you when you land like this? Like, you're a poser. You're an absolute poser. I will say one part of the movie that is kind of cliched for a lot of these movies where two characters of a certain ilk, like tough guys, get together for the first time in a long time, even though they're friends, is that really bizarre scene in the apartment where they try to kill each other. Like
I don't understand that. Like, even if Natasha thought Yelena was still brain controlled or whatever, and thought like, oh, she might be a threat, why would Yelena have been attacking her?
Yeah, that's I get what they're doing. I get the writer side of it is like, well, that's how these two play. But I was just like, you know what? She pulled a knife on her. Like, what if something just went a little bit 2 inches to the left and one of them gets stabbed in the lung? Like, I don't know. But those scenes happen in movies all the time. You have to have like the two protagonists showing off how tough they are.
For me, and it's essentially a B movie for as much as people like it. It's a cult classic, and I know the MCU is not ripping off They Live, but all these scenes always feel like They Live to me. It's always Keith David and Roddy Piper punching each other for 10 minutes.
But even they live. There's a fucking reason for it. Like, you're gonna put these glasses on and see what I'm talking about. And Keith David's like, no, I'm not. And this is just like, I haven't seen you in years. Let's stab each other for half an hour. Do you think this movie, like you said, it maybe necessarily didn't scratch the itch of an MCU movie, But if we want to get right down to it, if you want to go into the spy action thriller genre, do you think it excelled at that?
Yeah, I mean that's what the MCU does. For as much as I said they're tropesy and they have their formula that they stick to, I appreciate that the MCU tries things like they've done their star. What are those called? Space operas. They did that. They did trippy Doctor Strange movie. They do their different genres all the time. And for a spy action, I mean, like I said, that's the problem is we're going to get to the grades on this. And this movie is perfectly good. It's just, this isn't a I waited 2 years for it movie. But yeah, it did the trope, or it did the genre in the Marvel style as well as I could have wanted, or at least as well as any movie that wasn't The Winter Soldier.
I thought this was passable.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned it. Were you the one that had said maybe on Twitter or in maybe a mini review that the action was very choppy?
Oh God, no, the physical action in this was terrible. And the MCU, that's another thing. They have a long history of doing really quick cut scenes, and you don't get that extended hallway scene where it's just somebody doing a lot of action. Boy, the action in this was unfocused. I couldn't tell what was happening. It looked like people were in the corner of a shot and the camera was off looking at someone else and it was shaking, and it cut every 10th of a second. I did not like the action scenes in this at all. The character building and the spy stuff of it was interesting, but boy, as an action movie, it was real shit.
Do you think in the long run, because you had kind of mentioned, she obviously has never had her own movie and this is her first shot. And, at this point, we got to assume last shot, unless they're going to keep going backwards in time. Do you think Black Widow in comics and in movies is a character that should probably be relegated more to other people's titles in a supporting role than having a Black Widow book and or having Black Widow movies?
Recently we had that episode. We did the mini episode where we talked about trailers and new comics, and I had kind of segued off a bit into my personal thought on the comics industry. And if you adhere to what I think, give her own book, make it a digital only book, make it as part of a subscription service, get some unknown talent on there that might really have a great Black Widow story. I'm a fan of every character that more than 2 people in the world should have a book somehow, because there's got to be a writer out there who really wants to tell a Black Widow story. She probably works best as a side character. That's probably who she is. That's probably why she worked better as an Avenger in these movies than she did necessarily in this. But I mean, yeah, you got to give people a try. With movies, it's harder because movies are much more expensive to make. If you're going to make a Black Widow movie, you're hoping for a really big return on your investment. Yeah, as far as comics go, I'm here for Black Widow comics. Just, I'm not going to pay $5 an issue for them. That's all.
Right. So we did an episode of your show recently, and I won't spoil what the movie was, but obviously on your show on the Stu World Order podcast, which, by the way, if you have not checked it out, please go check it out. It's a fantastic show. And on this current episode, I'm on talking about 2011's Thor, MCU as well. So jump on over there. But we just did a second episode that'll be coming out next year, because that's how fucking far ahead you are. Me and you are recording this on a Wednesday night, so I can hopefully get this out for Friday. That's how off I am.
And what we recorded an hour ago won't come out until January.
Yeah, so that's coming out. But on that episode, you kind of had criticized the film we were talking about because you felt like the characters that we get from the comics didn't necessarily translate to the movie well, in terms of maybe the character had shifted and changed in certain ways. And it's I don't want to use the word controversy. That's fucking stupid. But if you want to talk about people crying on Twitter, how did you feel about what they did with Taskmaster in this movie? And even not so much Taskmaster, but anytime they change characters around a bit. Now, what we're talking about here is Taskmaster in the comic books is a male character. Okay.
He's a smart ass. He talks a lot.
Right. Talks a lot, smart ass. The powers are essentially the same in terms of the mimicry and the combat skills, but the way that they do them is differently. In this one, it's kind of like a reflex memory thing. And it turns out, as I mentioned earlier on, that this Taskmaster is actually the villain's daughter, who Black Widow had, before she left the Red Room I almost said to defecate, to defect.
Gotta defecate all over the Red Room. That's the only way to save the day.
before she defecated.
This wasn't just the MCU's attempt at a spy thriller. It was the MCU's attempt at scatological porn.
Yes, yeah. So before she defected to the Avengers and to Shield, she essentially blows up the villain of the piece, and his daughter is collateral damage. She's like 6 years old, and that's another thing I didn't like about this movie so much is that we didn't really get to see too much of her pain over that. Like we do eventually, but I would have liked it to have been maybe like a little bit more sharp.
It was all very tell, not show. They just had Black Widow saying like, "Oh, I was sad about that," but we've never seen anything in her entire cinematic history that shows that she's sad about it.
It would have been nice if we built up maybe even in the last like 2 years worth of movies that something had happened. But but anyways, the Taskmaster in this is that little girl who he saved her. He put a chip in her brain, and she's now able to do all these crazy things. And if you saw the trailer, she could mimic anybody that we see her fight like Spider-Man. We see her fight like Black Panther. We see her using the shield, which she has like Taskmaster in the comics, like Captain America. So how did you feel about them doing that in this movie?
I didn't necessarily love it. And I think the MCU has really enjoyed doing this with characters in the last, almost since the beginning of the MCU, honestly. They like to take a villain, and since their pieces are very protagonist-oriented, they kind of feel like, well, we can subvert the villain a little bit and do whatever we want to. And I think it has worked at some points, and I think it has not worked in others. I know you have a different opinion of Iron Man 3 than others, but the Mandarin is obviously a huge one for a lot of people. They definitely completely subverted that character in a way that I didn't necessarily like. But then you take Ant-Man and the Wasp and what they did with Ghost, and I thought that was fantastic. I really liked their interpretation of Ghost. This was another one of those instances where they had a character and they were just like, we're just going to do our own spin on it. And it's not like Taskmaster is a huge character. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, no, not my Taskmaster, but he is a more fun character in the comics. Like, he's a smart ass, and he has discretion as the better part of valor. He will completely flee if he feels he's outmatched, and I like that aspect of him. He's just here for the bucks, and if something is not worth the money, he's going to get the hell out of Dodge. It's very Ryan Reynolds Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine, where it's like, oh, we have this funny smart ass character, let's make them never talk.
I think one of my biggest problems with the whole thing, what you said is all good. I think that the fact that I saw some pictures that they used a male stunt double, like, it just seems like complete tomfoolery.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that.
It's pretty obvious if you watch the movie that it's a guy under the suit.
Yeah,
he's built like a guy. He fights, he's sized like a guy, and then you take it off, and it's this girl. I have no problem with the character being a girl, but why the fuck? I feel like they were trying really hard to trick us on this one.
Yeah, it was just misleading for the sake of misleading. Yeah.
Would you have been bothered if, like, from the very beginning of the movie, there was no twist that Taskmaster was a woman, but just the twist was that it was his daughter? I would have been fine with that. It would have been cool to know that there's another female, that's as deadly out there as Black Widow. I would have been fine, but I feel like they went above and beyond to try to make us think, well, this is a guy. And then the whole thing is it's a girl. Oh, and it's the bad guy's daughter. I think that was a mistake myself.
It's the Metroid reveal.
Yeah.
It's a girl all along. I'm going to be honest. I 100% don't have a problem with the fact that they made Taskmaster a girl. If your problem is that they made Taskmaster a woman, your problem is stupid. My problem is, he's a fun character in the comics, and here he's a silent idiot who just doesn't do anything relevant. But yeah, no, you're right. They completely just, mask him up the whole time just to try and trick you. Like, you just assume you're getting Tony Masters, and then at the end it's a woman, then you weren't expecting that. So yeah, that it feels kind of cheap, but I mean,
you don't get Tony Masters, you get Antonia. I love how they have to do that little stuff. Although I'm okay with that.
It's like they didn't bother doing that with Ghost. I mentioned her again in Ant-Man and the Wasp. That was a case of subverting a villain was a really good idea and really worked. But I mean, who she is. Her story really seems to matter. All the Taskmaster story is really just kind of shoot in at the end, like, oh, this is everything you need to know about this character who's shown up twice before now.
Yeah, and how do we not use that awesome, like, skull mask as a design? Like,
yeah, come on, that's great.
You actually had, like, they think people are going to confuse him with the Punisher. Probably, in all honesty, that was probably part of the focus group. Was like, there can only be one skull, you know. So we talked a little bit about the action. We talked about, some of the stuff going on with the characters in this. Overall, was there any set piece or scene that really stands out to you? Because I think when this movie ended, and I was talking to, I don't know, somebody at work the next day about it, I told them I enjoyed it, but to me, this is a movie that, like, if I don't see it again anytime soon, will sink into the memory hole. Like, I'm not going to be able to tell you, like, what the fuck happened in Black Widow, you know?
Yeah, I refer to movies like this as frustratingly adequate, where they're not so great that you're going to remember them, and they're not even so terrible that you're going to remember them. You mentioned Midsommar. I fucking hate Midsommar, but I'll remember that movie until I goddamn die.
Right.
And yeah,
right.
This movie, I worry the longer we get out, the more I'm going to forget things. I don't know if it's the standout set piece of the movie, but the prison breakout scene with Alexei is pretty good. There's some good action there, and you've got Yelena up in the helicopter, like, oh, this would be a cool way to die. And when Black Widow does her jump and does her pose, she's like, I told you she was a poser. That's probably the best part in the movie. And Alexei trying to get up to the helicopter and just being a big out of shape guy. Yeah, nothing else really matched up to that. I feel like at this point in cinematic history, we've seen way too many people falling out of the sky and fighting at the same time scenes. Like, I can't believe this movie fell on that of all things. Because boy, I mean, that is just an overdone movie scene at this point. So to me, that didn't really do anything. I thought the prison breakout scene was, hopefully that'll be what I remember about this movie.
The whole ending scene where the Red Room, which is situated in like a low orbiting satellite in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like a helicarrier.
Yeah, and it's blowing up, it's falling apart, and of course, all the protagonists and antagonists are trying to get off of it. And, and like Stu said, it's very much like Iron Man 3, where you have the scene where he's got to, like, rescue everybody that fell out of the plane or was thrown out of the plane. And we get this scene where all these different characters are falling through the sky. And, I know what movie we're watching. We're watching Black Widow. I know that this is ridiculous, but there's the part where, as they're falling through the sky, Natasha lands on, like, a giant piece of metal, like a platform, and she's able to slow herself down, and Taskmaster lands on it, and they kind of are about to have a fight on this falling platform. And just for a half a second, I just said to myself, I can't even sometimes get up in the middle of the night to take a leak without stubbing my toe. Like, how the fuck are these two supposed to do this shit?
Yeah.
Like, I know people are going to listen to this and go, oh, I'm not, I get it. I know what kind of movie you're in. But every once in a while, sometimes when you're in a fantastical movie, you look at a bit and you go, what the fuck is going on here?
I've never enjoyed people falling out of the sky fighting. Like, maybe the first movie I saw it in. But I mean, Jesus, we've done this. So, like, Fast and the Furious has done this. The A-Team has done this. Terminator Dark Fate has done this. Like, we've seen people falling out of the sky fighting each other. I think friggin' Get Smart with Steve Carell did this scene, and it's like,
Jesus.
Like, we've seen this, and maybe the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that was a really good idea. And now everyone has used that idea. You can't bring anything new to that at this point. Have them fight somewhere else.
Yeah. I did like the chase scene through, I don't remember what, were they in Budapest or Budapest, as they say, when the Taskmaster was in that little, like, tank ATV type thing. I like that. I like the bit where the car got fucking blown off of its wheels and thrown into the subway station and, like, just rolls around on top. Overall, like you kind of said, perfectly adequate would be how I felt about this movie. I enjoyed it. I went and saw it and I had a good time. And at the end of it, like, I didn't come out of it going, man, I hate that movie. But I immediately knew that, like, I would probably never watch it again. And I'm a guy that watches things again and again and again. And I'm a guy that buys the Blu-rays. And I just said to myself, I don't know. I don't know if that was really, like, I'm an MCU fan. I'm not, like, a super fanboy. I'm not one of these people that's dying for the next movie. Like, I'm excited Shang-Chi comes out. But in all honesty, if you told me that was they moved it from September to January, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see all these things, but I'm not chomping at the bit for them. But if I was chomping at the bit for this, I would have been, I think, sorely disappointed, you know?
Yeah, no, I get it. That's what I told Amanda. Did not intend to see this opening weekend. And then the Friday it came out, everything I heard about it on Twitter was, oh, this movie's amazing. The early reviews were fantastic. The early people posting about it saying it was great. And then I went and saw it, and maybe I went in all on this high, like, oh shit, it's another top 10 MCU movie. And when I saw it, it was just like, well, no, it wasn't. Maybe that just felt more like a letdown than it was. Let me ask you something. I don't know if you've done this. Maybe you'll just have to postulate a number. There's been 24 MCU movies. To me, I went and re-ranked them after this came out. I have this in like the 17 to 19 range, depending on how I feel about Doctor Strange and Captain America, the First Avenger on any given day. But it's, the lower third of the list. Yeah. Whereabouts do you think this would be for you?
We did an episode very early in Pine Comics where we did that, and it was before Infinity War came out. It might have been right when Infinity War was coming out. So there have been probably 5 movies since then. This is perfectly adequate. It's not bad. Thor: The Dark World to me is bad. You said 17 and 19. I would put this between 19 and maybe 21. Like Thor: The Dark World is under this. Probably the original Thor is under this. Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2. The problem with Iron Man 2 is that it's just Iron Man 1 done again. But just not as well. So, like, if Iron Man
with Mickey Rourke and a bird,
right? If Iron Man 2 had been Iron Man 1, I don't know if everybody would hate it as much because it does have moments, but it doesn't do anything to build upon the first one. Yeah, I would almost say you're right. Like, I would have to look at the list of movies again, but I would have to say you're right. To me, it's probably like 19 to 21 in
all
there.
Right. Now let me be an asshole.
Yeah,
because I'm going to be an asshole. Let's assume Black Widow 2021 was a movie in the DC extended universe. Where would it be in there?
Oof.
Because I genuinely think, like, in the DC extended universe, this is like 2 or 3.
Yeah, not 2 or 3, but like heavy, like 4 to middle, like 4 to 6. Yeah. Because, they do have a couple that I enjoyed. I didn't hate Man of Steel like everybody else. It has its problems, but there's a lot of stuff I like about that movie. Shit, I don't know if I like anything more than that. I didn't hate. I'm one of the few people I didn't hate Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I didn't hate Suicide Squad.
I didn't hate Suicide Squad. It is what it is. I'm actively very excited about. Like, I'm going to see Suicide Squad 2 in the theaters.
Oh, I think the second Suicide Squad looks even better than the first, and I didn't hate the first either.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's probably top 3 right in the middle because I know it's popular to say, but yeah, the DCEU sucks. Even the ones that people like, I didn't like Shazam. It didn't work for me. I like bits and pieces of it. Like, I liked Zach Levi, but it just didn't work for me. So yeah, it would definitely be a better DCEU movie than it was a Marvel movie.
Yeah, I know we differ there. For me, Shazam is the number 1 in the DCEU, and nothing else is even in its stratosphere. But
yeah, I have a hard time saying anything's number 1. But again, but honestly, again, I don't really have a big problem with Man of Steel. I love, like, Man of Steel. That first 15 minutes on Krypton, I think is phenomenal. Sure, he wants him to let the kids drown. He doesn't let him save his dad. Killing Zod. But there's stuff in there I like too. So, and by far and away, it's the best Henry Cavill Superman we got out of the rest of everything else that we saw, because it just got worse and worse and worse as it went along. So yeah. All right. So let's rate this thing. Let's go on the Pine of Comics score table, which is 0 to 5, quarter and half scale is optional. Stu, what do you give 2021's, originally 2020's, Black Widow?
It's pretty much, it's better than average. It's not great. A 3.0, right even 3. It's good. Like I said, it's frustratingly good. I wish it had been better. I almost wish it had been worse so that I would have more to say about it. But I enjoyed myself, and like you, I don't know that I'll watch it again. Whenever it starts streaming on Disney Plus for free, I'll put it on the list for my show. And if somebody ever draws it, I'll watch it again. But I'm never just going to be like, oh, I'm going to check out that Black Widow movie again. Yeah,
I get that. I'm going to go a little bit below you. I'm going to go, Yeah, I'm gonna go probably like a 2.75.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like almost a little bit above the middle. 2.5 would be like a very middling. It definitely has stuff I like about it. Again, I wasn't excited about Black Widow, but if you said tomorrow that like they were going to do a MCU television show about Elena, I would be in. I would be in on that in a second. I liked her character. I like that actress. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the post-credit stuff, where it seems like Valentina is putting together or has put together some form of a team. We got to see her with John Walker over on Falcon Winter Soldier, and now we're seeing her with Elena, and she's obviously already worked for her for some period of time. So I'm hoping we get to see a show or something with those characters, or even a movie. But yeah, it's a 2.75. It was totally enjoyable. I had a good time watching it. But it's one of those movies that it fails upon thought to rewatch. Like, yeah, I can't picture like going like, hey, look, I got 3 hours tonight before I'm gonna go to bed. Let me throw in Black Widow again. Like, now I'll find something else.
I'll say the nice thing about this movie is it started as bad as it was going to get. I think the first act was the worst part of this movie. And then the second act picked up and the third act was serviceable, even though most of it was that falling out of the sky thing. But the worst part of the movie to me was the first act. Like it was boring. I didn't care about much. And it needed 100% more David Harbour that the rest of the movie had that the first act didn't have. I think once you get to the prison breakout scene and he comes into the movie, honestly, everything for me picked up a great deal.
I think I liked the very first bit. I like that whole Ohio 1995.
Yeah.
Like, and you're seeing what's going on there. And then I liked the setup, classic kind of spy movie setup. Like, we've got to, I've got to get these vials to Natasha, and we're going to get these to the Red Room, and we're going to stop the Red Room. But just somewhere along the whole thing, it just, I don't know. I didn't dig the family aspect as much when they got back together again.
Oh, okay.
It seemed like it seemed like these people like just fell back into each other's lives really easily. Maybe that was the point, but I don't know if that was really sticking with me or not. And I totally fucking hated the scene where she was choking the pig. I
know, I didn't like that either. Don't torture animals in movies. I don't like that.
I'm not
Even
a fan.
if it's a pig, I don't want to see that.
I'm not a fan of that at all. And the fact that she was like not paying attention to what she was doing. I know she said he had 11 seconds left, but it's like, come on, bitch.
Yeah.
Hit that button.
Don't choke the pig. Yeah, I was uncomfortable with that too. I'm an animal lover. I just don't want to see anything like that. But
yeah,
the rest of the family dynamic scene, I actually really did enjoy. I thought that was kind of the height of the movie where, we're slowing things down. We don't have really poorly choreographed and filmed fight scenes. We just have 4 really good actors talking things out. And I was happy with that.
Yeah, they were good. And out of all of them, I did like Elena's arc the most because she was only like 5 when everything happened. So, and she's had this fucked up upbringing. To her, like that
they
was
really
like
were
family.
a family.
Yeah.
And it's so depressing when you see like the other 3 of them are just like, but Yelena, to them, like that really was her family. There's a nice touch in this movie that I've since seen online that David Harbour's character, when you see him in the prison, he has a prison tattoo and it's the names Natasha and Yelena in Russian.
Really?
Mm.
Because he seemed like when you meet him, he seemed like he just didn't give a shit,
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind, again, I'm sure David Harbour's busy with Stranger Things, but like I wouldn't mind seeing a Red Guardian TV show.
Yeah.
Especially maybe something showing like what did he go to jail for? Like, it was some state secrets or something and they wanted to throw him away. But like, I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing a show maybe where it's bookended by him in jail telling stories of him as Red Guardian, I think that'd be pretty cool.
And it's all the stories that you don't know how much of a grain of salt to take them with, but you just see them from his perspective.
This movie might be unmemorable as a movie, but it's spawned 2 TV shows I'd watch the shit out of right now.
Well, it seems like the MCU is going to start making television series until we choke on them, so you may get both of those.
I still haven't finished Loki yet. I only saw the first episode, so I got to finish that, and then we'll see what's next. We'll see what's next.
First episode of Loki was the worst, so I saw the first episode and was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then I ended up really liking it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've already been spoiled for it. So I know what happens, but I'm still going to go through it and watch it. All right, Stu, thank you so much for filling in tonight. It's always great doing shows with you. That was our review of Black Widow. It is out there in the movie theaters. Hey, you know what? If you're vaccinated and you feel good and you want to get out there, I'll tell you what, it was a really nice thing getting out to a movie theater. As dumb as that sounds, that's kind of a hillbilly thing to say, but it was so weird. It felt like I had never left. It'd been a year and a half, but like being out in an actual like big theater, it was just kind of nice. Going up to the snack bar, getting I got a box of Goobers. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
I watch a ton of movies, and especially since COVID has started, I have watched so many movies from home, but I would always choose to see a movie in theaters instead of at home, because when I'm at home, the lighting's not perfect. I get distracted. The air conditioning comes on and I have to fuck around with the volume on my TV. No, I want to go to the movie theaters all the time. I don't care about the price. I don't care about the sticky floor. And like I said, in the last month and a half or so, I've seen Black Widow, The Conjuring, and the second Quiet Place. I'm just so happy. That's what I told my wife. I was like, I don't care about going out to eat. I don't care about anything else. I miss going to the movies.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I've always been a movie lover. I have not gone to the movies as much in the last few years. And when COVID hit and things were coming out like direct to TV, and me and my wife rented a few of them for like that $20.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had a good time and all. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? And I think we had an episode of Piney Comics where we talked about like the future of movie theaters. And at the time I thought, you know what, maybe if these things go away, I could deal with it. I could watch them at home. But like Suicide Squad's a perfect example. I have HBO Max. It's going to be out that day, but like, I literally want to go see that on a big screen because I want to have that experience. I want to see it on the giant screen. And you know what? If I love it at the movie theaters, then I can watch it for the whole next month as much as I want on my fucking TV.
That is true.
There is some kind of upgrade, like you said. There is some kind of feeling of getting out and enjoying that half of it. And it also, I think part of it for us right now, here where we are with COVID, is not being told what you can and can't do anymore, which was huge.
Yeah.
All right. So
there's a Delta variant. So hold on, we may be getting back to.
I'm cutting that out. I don't even want to talk about that. No, I'm kidding. I know. Trust me, I know. So, Stu, tell everybody about your show, about your website, all the good stuff.
So the show is the Stu World Order podcast. Just like we talked about Black Widow here, we pretty much only talk about comic book movies. I have a list of 125 comic book movies. I bring a guest on. They give me 3 numbers. I tell them what they quote unquote chose, and they tell me which movie we want to watch. So that's the movie we watch. We get in and out. We talk about the ups and downs of the movies. We rate the movie, and we have a talking point relating to the movie after every episode. And then over on the website, swoproductions.com, we've got me and a few others, new articles every single day, comic book reviews, wrestling reviews. We sometimes review old movies, just whatever the hell comes to my mind whenever I'm just like, oh shit, I have 2 articles due in the next 2 days and I haven't written anything. Better pump something out. So things just happen sometimes.
And you're your own editor. So it's like,
I am the boss.
You're yelling at yourself, Stuart! I need those pictures of Spider-Man now!
It's funny because I have a thing that's like, on the 1st of the month, this happens, the 2nd of the month, all the way through the 28th of the month. And sometimes I'll get to like the 23rd and I'll look at what's supposed to come out on the 24th and I'll say, shit, I haven't done that yet. So whatever was, quote unquote, supposed to be the 25th gets promoted a day so that I have a little extra time. But yeah, that's it. I'm my own boss. I can fuck up with my own system all I want. No one can stop me.
Well, I love the website. I love the show. And it's always great having you on. You know us. We're Pint Comics, Pint O Comics on Twitter, Pint_O_Comics on Instagram. And Lloyd usually says that I'll do it this time. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.